Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our panelists. Mayor, City of Houston, Annise D. Parker. President and CEO, Walmart U.S., Walmart Stores Incorporated, Bill Simon. Venture partner, the Collaborative Fund, Jessica Jackley. And our moderator, host, Al Jazeera America, Ali Velshi.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is our pleasure to be here and to kick this off with a very interesting discussion about shared value and shared values and shared responsibility. And it's a complicated question because we need to determine whether shared value is important to us and how we get there, and whether shared responsibility helps us achieve greater shared value. In my little head, I've replaced shared value with shared prosperity. That's sort of the way I understand this. But we asked you, and I hope you all voted, because we put a question out there to say, I fully understand the concept of shared value, and we asked you to strongly agree or strongly disagree or agree. Strongly agree or disagree, or strongly disagree. The good news is that nobody strongly disagreed. So you're all pretty smart. In fact, only a third of you strongly agreed that you understood the concept of shared value. And it's not a trick. I mean, it's an esoteric concept. It's not, I don't think people get up in the morning and talk to their significant other about shared value. 44% agree. So 3/4 of you get the idea that there's something there about shared value. 33%, a third of you, disagree. You do not believe that you have a full grasp on the topic. So that is the work that we have for us here, to determine whether we think there's value, or let me not add the word value to this discussion. We think there's something to be worked with in terms of working toward greater shared value, how we get there, what works. And we have representatives from industry, we've got representatives from government here, how people go about achieving greater value or prosperity in society. So I want to start with Bill, because to some degree, if I'm talking about prosperity, you've got a real finger on this pulse just by virtue of the number of people who come into Walmart every week, and you can tell their sense, how they're feeling about their prosperity based on whether they come in more often and what they spend and how they spend it. So let's just talk about this concept of shared value, because you seem to have a fairly direct line to increasing and decreasing senses of prosperity in America.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great pleasure to be with you here today. We do have about 140 million visitors a week in our stores in the U.S., and we see them in their best times and in their worst times, personally and economically. And good news, I would say, the middle and sort of lower middle, our customer base, feels like it's stabilized. I would tell you that they're feeling that it's getting a lot better very quickly, but encouragingly, I think they're figuring out exactly what to do in the environment that they're in today, which is a slow growth, worry about your job, try to figure out how to make ends meet. They're finding a way to be happy in that environment today. So we see just different purchase patterns. I'll give you an example. We have customers who have not cut back on special events, holidays, Christmas, Memorial Day, Mother's Day, but in the in-between periods, they pull back a little bit to try to save money so they can celebrate with their family. So as I said, they're figuring out how to operate in a pretty uncertain environment.
Mayor Parker, I think politics used to be about how we all lift each other up and increase in our...
When?
Well, it's back when I had hair. Since then, a few things have happened. The recession has, sort of caused a lot of people to get into this caveman mentality. They look after themselves and their family, and you really can't trust other people because the banks pulled one over on you, and the regulators pulled one over on you, and the rich pulled one over on you. And the sense of we share prosperity, I think for a lot of people left. And then we have this issue where we've developed into a politics where it's not really shared. It's about what more can I get, or my group, what can we get? We've bifurcated a little bit. You are in the business of trying to tell a community we can grow together, and it benefits everybody to grow together. Tell me about that.
I do believe that at the municipal level, we are a level of government that has some bit more trust from the population than some of the other levels of government. Cities across America do the same basic functions. It doesn't really matter the size of the city. You have to pick up the trash. You have to, there has to be a water supply. The sewers have to work. The traffic signals have to blink in the right order, and the streets have to be paved. Police officer has to come. The firefighter has to come. You very quickly close that feedback loop. People in your city know if you are not producing. And on those basic functions, cities have to perform 24/7, and they have to perform at a fairly high level in order to sustain a population. But even with that, clearly not everyone benefits across the economic spectrum. Houston has the hottest economy in the United States. I am blessed to be mayor of Houston. And for those of you who don't know, Houston's America's 4th largest city. And we are experiencing some boom times now. We last into the recession, first out of the recession. But I also have one of the largest, if not the largest, refugee population in the United States. 20% of Houstonians are foreign-born, and that includes the best and the brightest who come from all over the world to work in our medical center, to work in oil and gas, to work in our high-tech industries. And refugees and immigrants, documented and otherwise, who come and they're illiterate in their home languages and barely capable of functioning in a modern society. And we have to make sure that we have a place for everyone, and that is a struggle.
All right, we're going to come back to how you achieve that, what the setbacks are, and what the successes have been. Jessica, I want to turn to you because you have been involved in the financing and funding of enterprises that will help in some ways share value. They'll create value where it hasn't naturally occurred, where there's been a market failure. And I guess you can draw the line between that and an increase in shared value and shared prosperity.
Tell me, I can draw the line between what?
What you're doing, the funding
Right.
of these enterprises that are answering some sort of market failure, and the fact that it benefits society's shared value. It increases society's shared value.
It's funny. I mean, I think this exchange right now in the last few seconds illustrates probably what I feel most strongly about this, which is that I don't really see the line. I think it's a little bit sad that we have to remind ourselves as individuals, as families, as communities, as businesses, that yeah, you can create value in the world, and it doesn't mean that if you create it, you can't share in it, right? It doesn't have to be yours or mine. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It doesn't have to be a finite thing. Bear with me. I'm a relatively new mom. I have 1.5-year-old twins, and one of the first things that I wanted to figure out as a mom is when is it appropriate to really teach them and insist on their ability to share, right? You can be really little. It's like 15, 16 months. Anyway, I read a lot of parenting books. But here's the thing, to see them learn to trust each other through this process, to see them learn that, oh yeah, we don't have to buy 2 of every toy because we're not going to do that. And you can, now it's your turn, you can actually have an asset, and you can have access to that asset, that resource. It doesn't have to be mine or yours. That's just one example, one kind of category of shared economy, sharing economy, shared value. But the idea that we forget this along the way, that there can be something of value in the world that we create together, and it doesn't just have to be mine or yours. It doesn't have to be compartmentalized like that. I sometimes find surprising that we have to remind ourselves.
When you said you don't really see the line,
yeah,
you're saying that you shouldn't have to have that? You shouldn't have to connect the creation of value for some part of society with the fact that we're all benefiting from it? I just want to get clarity on.
I'm sorry, I think, well, I guess when you were talking about that line before, I believe that sometimes businesses or corporations, right, draw a line between the thing that they're creating for a paying customer and how they can benefit off of it versus the system that they're building sort of overall that many, many people can benefit from. And I guess also businesses think about creating value for themselves, for shareholders, and in a way that sometimes overlaps. Maybe they don't recognize that overlaps what they can create.
Ideal
for
that you
customers.
bring that up because we have somebody from corporate America right here. Let's talk about this. I mean, look, companies have often had to think about the sharing of prosperity between their clients, their customers and constituents, their employees and vendors, and their shareholders, and increasingly society at large, their neighborhood. Tell me about how you think about this at Walmart.
Sure will, but before I do, Jessica, work as hard as you can on that sharing thing because one day they're going to be teenagers and then everything they learned is gone. I have to tell you that it's, I don't know what happens. It goes away. But Allie, I think you said it right, and that's where Jessica was going. In a company, we have constituencies that are the people who work for us, the people who buy from us, our customers, and our fiduciary responsibility to shareholders. And when we can find intersections of those three groups and things that are good public policy, magic can happen. And when you don't, and when it doesn't quite work, it breaks down. And a couple of quick examples. We've made I think some really good strides in sustainability, and we've had some failures as well. And as you break those down, the successes come when we can find a way to have what's good for the environment be good for business. So if we can reduce waste, it's good for the planet and it's really good for our bottom line. So our shareholders are happy, people who are concerned about the environment are happy. When one of those elements are missing, it doesn't work. So we tried some products and the price was high. They were great for the environment, but they weren't great for the customers, and so they didn't sell, and it didn't work. And you've got to really search to find those intersections, and we're doing that with some of our veterans initiatives today, and a push into more domestic manufacturing and buying products that are made in the U.S. It's an intersection that benefits our customers, it benefits our shareholders, and it benefits the communities. And when you can find that, it really works.
Mayor, you were recently named one of 5 winners of the Bloomberg Philanthropies Mayor's Challenge, which is a sort of an incentivized prize competition, which you used to sort of solve some logistics problems in Houston. That's sort of a one way of having shared prosperity out of a shared problem, or taking shared responsibility for a problem. Tell me about. In fact, you came up with something called One Bin for All. You didn't, but that was the winning competition.
Well, we haven't completely proved the concept yet. We're still working on it. But the idea is, if you look at the basic functions that cities have to provide, is there a way to provide them in a completely new way? Not faster and more efficiently, but differently. And one service that all cities have to provide is you have to do something with the trash. Whether you live in a cave or whether you live in a big city, you have to do something with the trash. And we have decided that we will separate that trash out into recyclables and, common garbage that ends up in the dump. And we depend on individuals to make that choice and provide that service for cities. And the idea is, can we turn the waste stream into a commodity and actually do that sorting into recyclables and remainder through mechanical means? The technology is there. It hasn't been applied to this scale and in this concept, and we want to see if we can prove it.
Was there some benefit to the process? The idea of a prize, the idea of trying to almost crowdsource the solution?
The incentive was what started us thinking in this direction. We had been kicking it around for a long time, and when it came to time to apply for the Bloomberg Foundation grant, we had a lot of ideas, and we said, we think we can achieve all of these other ones. Let's put one out that we don't know whether we can do it, but it is possible to do and stretch ourselves. And so the incentive helped, and it got us thinking in a different way.
Bill, you mentioned something about the military. You're a longtime military man. That is an example of shared value, shared values, in fact, creating shared value. Obviously, you've got to depend on others. You've got to collaborate. You've got to have all of those partnerships necessary to make that work. Now, you're doing work, Walmart's doing work with veterans. Give me a sense of the lesson that you're learning from this.
I think that's what I was talking about just a moment ago, an intersection of a lot of good things. I think there's just some brilliant work being done to to help our country value and honor the veterans who served. Greatest privilege of my life ever was wearing the uniform. And people sometimes thank you for your service. It's frankly, it's us who should thank the country for all the values that we get. When we match up sort of hierarchically like the military does. We have pilot jobs and truck driver jobs and management jobs and entry-level positions, much like the military. So we're able to plug people in and get them started on a career progression relatively easily. We also have large numbers of opportunity in the U.S. with about 1.4 million people working for us in the U.S. At any given time, we have between, say, 15,000 and 25 or 30,000 job openings. And I think even at Christmas, closer to 50 during the seasonal periods. So we have opportunity. We need talent. The biggest challenge, the what keeps you awake at night question for me is always people and talent and staffing. So for us, it's a win. We have disciplined, capable people who want to work, come to work every day, and they have that sort of in their DNA. And we have opportunity. And most of those folks don't want a handout. They just want an opportunity and a chance. And we're pleased to give them that chance. When they found out about it, the White House became actively engaged and helped push it forward. We're working with the Department of Defense and the Department of Veterans Affairs, both nationally and all across the country. And it's just been a phenomenal response. Reached out to the top 50 employers in the U.S. and 44 of them joined us on the effort, and so we're trying to build a kind of a consortium or clearinghouse so that if you don't want to work in retail, you might want to work in manufacturing or in a restaurant. We're trying to build a group of people so that when these vets look for opportunity, we can steer them to the right place where they'll have a chance, where they can integrate, where they can move forward. They have the ability to make us better, and we're just thrilled to be able to do it.
Jessica, I'm unsure if somebody asked me whether we live in a shared economy. I'm not sure anymore. I think I used to be very sure that, sure, we prosper and people who with money spend money and that accrues to shareholders and workers and it all kind of evens out. And then we go through periods like we've gone through in the last few years, which are a lot less even. But you talk about something that's very different from a shared economy. You talk about a sharing economy. Sounds the same, but it's something entirely different. Can you give the audience some sense of what you mean? You make investments in companies through the Collaborative Fund that are about sharing.
That's correct. So, and my gut would be that we do live in a time when there is this sharing economy happening, and we can participate. We can opt in as much as we'd like. I think it'll be harder and harder I think it'll be more a question of opting out as time goes on. So I guess I think it's a gradient. I don't know that everybody is living in this time and place right now, but in terms of how the Collaborative Fund looks at what does create value in the world, we invest at the startup stage, at the seed stage, in organizations that really appreciate this value of providing access, of building systems, building tools, providing products and services that allow people to have access to resources as opposed to outright ownership, that champion the values of sharing and bartering. And underlying all of this, I think, is a real appreciation for these values that are so important to how we work together, how we live together, how we can collaborate and co-create this kind of new way of existing. Or, as we've talked about, it's been around for a while, but it's a new version of things given the technology that we have today. So,
can you give me some examples?
Yeah, sure.
Of what that looks like?
Sure. So I'll name a few of the organizations that we've had the privilege of working with and investing in. So Early Investors in Kickstarter, a platform for funding creative projects and ideas. Gettable, where you can rent anything from almost anyone. Lyft, on-demand ride sharing. Skillshare, where anyone can teach what they know to anyone else. So you can see in all these different areas, all these different industries, there are pioneering organizations and individuals that are cropping up saying, we can use these values, utilize these values of trust and openness and take advantage of the fact that we do have so much information about the assets, the resources that exist around us. We can share those, and we can take advantage of this trend that I do believe is more and more going to become the future.
Mayor, it's an appealing concept for cities, where so many of a city's problems can be overcome when the community comes together to decide they're going to be overcome. So we've seen this in cities with crime. We've seen it with drugs, where there's so much that can be done by City Hall and through policy, and there's so much more that can be done when the problems of a municipality are shared by those people. They're owned by everybody who lives there. They want a better city. They want a safer city. They want a more prosperous city with better jobs. So at Houston, where you're on this sort of upswing, how do you harness that energy to try and get everybody to say, let's make Houston even better?
I have a couple of answers to that. I would say first, communication. You have to have the trust of your constituents, and there has to be a transparency and a good flow of communication. But I'm still caught up on the last answer. I think what you're describing is true and exciting for a small swath of America. And the America I live in has a lot of have-nots out there who have no access to the internet, have no access to technology, have very few skills, and very few prospects. And that is the blessing and the curse of cities. Cities are engines of opportunity in the economy and jobs, and they are also traps for a lot of people. Now, the direct answer to your question, though, one of the first things I had to confront when I came in as mayor in the beginning of 2010 was decades of underfunding in infrastructure. And so I did two things that were considered impossible. One, I managed to take to my city council in the first 3 months a complete overhaul of our water sewer rate system so that we could put money back into the system and replace our water and sewer pipes. Not something sexy, and we ended up hiking water rates about 30% in the middle of a recession. Had the conversation with the public, though, as to this is what we need to do, this is why we need to do it, and these are the benefits to be had. Later that November, we also went to the voters with a dedicated fund for street and drainage infrastructure in the city of Houston. And anybody remembers the 2010 election? That was the off-cycle election, throw the incumbents out. We hated everybody and everything, and yet voters of Houston imposed a drainage fee on themselves because we had the public, calm, reasonable discussion of these are our needs, this is what we're going to do with the money, and we put some good government restraints around the money. One of the things that I gave up was the ability to do debt financing with that money. So you're giving me a new source of money, I won't borrow against it, right. And this is the part of the compact.
Calm, reasoned discussion, and by the way, we in the cable news industry are happy to have contributed to calm, reasoned political discussion in America. By the way, Bill, I'll come to you in a second, but you talked about have-nots and the digital divide and things like that. Todd Parks was supposed to be with us. Todd is the Chief Technology Officer of the United States. He works in the White House, and he was on his way here. You know there's been some weather problems, and a number of flights were canceled, and he got bumped from his flight. And there are some of us wondering that if you work at the White House, can't you get unbumped? And I was told that, in fact, they can't. There's this great little part of democracy that doesn't actually allow them to get unbumped from a commercial flight. So he wasn't able to meet. He wasn't able to join us. But that is one of the topics that he had. That we talk about all this fantastic access to the internet and the shared experiences that we can have, and how social media does really help to enhance this idea of shared value and shared values.
And it does, and it is. And many cities are doing great things. We just conducted our first formal hackathon in the city of Houston, right. And we're going to be doing it on a quarterly basis, where we do targeted hacks, where we open our data and say, give us your best ideas, and hey, if you can go make money out of our data, go do it.
And you know, that's a great part of the discussion. Congratulations for that. Bill, and then Jessica.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the job the mayor's doing in Houston. You know, if you haven't been down there lately, this city is just vibrant and growing and phenomenal, and I think your leadership has just been terrific. So I just wanted to make
clearly a Houstonian over here. Could you do something with the heat? Is there an app for that?
Humidity is good for the complexion.
I see. Not when you have this much complexion. Jessica.
I just wanted to respond to something you'd said earlier. I very much hear you. I have a great appreciation and a heart for the disenfranchised communities that aren't opting into these, new startups, these great apps that you might have only in New York and San Francisco right now. I totally get that, and I hear you. In fact, I think a lot of the work that I did this season of life with Kiva gave me an appreciation for how resilient and how creative communities, in, God forbid, an offline way, are experts at sharing and at making things stretch, and having a community really be the entity that is the most important in terms of even one's identity. Having villages, having communities sort of pulled together and lift everybody up at the same time. And I think a lot of, maybe what you were talking about or what you were referencing is there definitely are some newer versions of this, some newer tech-based sort of solutions to allow some other, I guess, pockets of the population to share. But I think there's great inspiration and great real innovation, actually, to be found all across the country and all across the world in terms of how we share what we have.
I think going back to the basic question you first asked, shared value and shared values. I do believe there are shared American values. We believe in fairness and fair play. We believe that there are opportunities in America that are not found anywhere else in the world. We have come together around our veterans. I think we all believe in the value of education, and after you get past those shared bedrock values, how they play out can be very, very different in every community.
I want you to be right, but I worry that in the last, what we've seen in the last few elections is real distinctions being made by people who run for office and those who finance them between haves and have-nots, givers and takers, those who work for their money versus those who apparently don't. And I wonder whether we're getting down to actually a real crack in shared values. We talk about what is a fair rate of taxes. We don't actually all agree on what's fair for taxation. So I think you're optimistic, though it's the high tax group apparently.
I didn't
think you're
list a lot of
optimistic, but are
shared
you worried
values.
that
I
we're
think
going in the
there
wrong
are a few
direction?
core shared values here in America, and then we quickly fall apart.
Allie, we operate in virtually everywhere in the U.S. except New York City,
I know, that's why I paid
that's
$9 for a roll of toilet paper.
That's right. But what you see are the mayor's perspective is right. The bedrock beliefs all across the country are the same, but the wants and needs and desires of people are different, more different than they've been, at least in recent memory. That the needs of people in the middle of the country are different in the desires than they are on the coasts, for example. And I think sometimes we forget that. And one of the great things about our country is that it's designed and organized to allow both of those to exist. That the people in the cities and in the coasts to get what they want, and the people who live on rural farms to get and live the life that they want, all underpinned by these bedrock values of the
That's
country.
interesting that you say that, because this introduces another layer to this discussion about shared value. Can we, if we have grown different in those ways and want different things, and that's entirely okay, in fact, it's part of the beauty of America, can we then feel that we're part of some development of shared value?
Okay, values. Well, I think I'm going to answer your question, but I may not be. What I wanted to say was sort of the good news is the more we build these systems, the more we have organizations that do champion sort of this way of interacting. We sort of learn by doing. It's a real faith-building exercise to participate, for example, in, gosh, now I'm going to sound a little hokey, but if you're willing to put your home or your apartment or wherever you live up on Airbnb and allow other people to come in and use that space and to benefit from that, ideally, most of the time, you'll learn that people are trustworthy, and these systems can help take advantage of that and can help perpetuate that. So I think as we participate, the values that we are all talking about can be more galvanized.
But you're confident, despite what the mayor said, you're confident that will grow, because there are a very small number of people, I think, in America who would agree to putting their house up and letting people just come in and hope they don't steal stuff.
Yeah, I do think that will grow, and I think, There are early adopters that have been doing this for a while.
Have you done that?
No, but we did rent our house out over we moved back 3 days ago. We didn't.
Wow.
We're about to have
All
the
right.
opportunity to do that. So
Let me ask you a question. There was a question there. All right, well, J.B. Pritzker, actually. Is he in the crowd here somewhere, J.B.? I heard the president talking about you and the role you played in supporting CGI America. So for that role, you get a question. What role can entrepreneurship play in promoting a more cohesive America? Which is actually a good way of analyzing this question, right? Shared value and values might add to cohesion. And I want to ask you all this because you all have had specific experiences in entrepreneurship and creating a more cohesive America. Mayor, you've really, in Houston, embraced the effectiveness of public-private partnerships.
Houston is a city of business. It's always been a city of business. It was a trade center where the railroads met the ships. We have one of the most open, dynamic cultures, I think, in America. And it is a very open community. Houstonians really don't care where you came from, what your mother tongue was. They just want to know what you can do. And it's a very fluid society in that respect. And so entrepreneurism can create a leveling effect. And in talking about a shared value, Houston has that as a shared value, that a very fundamental belief that if you work hard enough, you're willing to prepare yourself, that you can achieve there. And that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Is that shared value? And I believe that from my time in Houston. I've seen that entrepreneurial spirit, but you do have a lot of people in your city who aren't part of that. And
Correct.
Do they sort of feel, hey, I'm in the city of entrepreneurs and I can do it too, or do they look at these guys and say, how come I can't be part of that?
They do. And it creates that crisis of expectation. They get the same messages that everybody else does. And we are creating, because we do attract the best and the brightest from around the world, and yet we have a huge gap in education and opportunity for our homegrown Americans, that there's a level of frustration that has to be built up. What the relief valve for us has been that our economy has been sufficient to eventually absorb a lot of that frustration.
Bill? So I'm going to go back to the original question. What role can entrepreneurship play in promoting a more cohesive America?
Our company was founded probably by one of the greatest American entrepreneurs. Sam Walton started at 5 and 10, and in a matter of 20 or 30 years built it. We just had our 50th anniversary. Built one of the greatest stories in American business. And that spirit is alive in the company today, and it's what we encourage all across the business. We look and actively seek out people who want to grow their business with us from a supplier perspective, and then we look for partnerships with companies and municipalities that want to do interesting and unique things. One of my favorite quotes from Sam was, swim upstream. His quote about not sort of complying with the conventional wisdom. When other people were going in one direction, there's an opportunity the other way. And that for us as a company is how we're sort of made up from a DNA perspective. But for me, that's what the country is. This country is about opportunity and energy and entrepreneurs, individuals trying to make their lives better in their communities while they're doing that. And so I think that's just a great question.
And Jessica, I left the last word to you because I know you do this. You have a strong belief that entrepreneurship contributes to social cohesion. So you have the last word on it.
Thank you. I mean, this is such a gorgeous question. I love this. So I believe, as President Obama talked about this during the signing of the Jobs Act into law, he talked about us being this great country being a nation of doers. And I really believe at its heart and at its best, entrepreneurship is about hopefulness and about optimism and about getting up every day and taking action, saying, what can I do and what can we do as a team of people, as an organization, as a movement? What can we do to make things better? So I love the idea that entrepreneurship, and I very much agree with it. I agree that entrepreneurship can make this country more cohesive because it's about, as I said, getting up every day, deciding how to make things better, and then doing that as a team.
Well, if entrepreneurship doesn't do it, like I said, cable news will take care of making it more cohesive. I've never heard a question described as gorgeous. That's a first, but you guys are a gorgeous panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We could have gone on a lot longer. Great round of applause for Jessica Jackley, Bill Simon, and Mayor Parker from Houston. Thank you so much to all of you. And thank you.